football isn't pressure for me in a weird way. I look at football as a challenge and an opportunity. From ever since I was little, I was in football changing rooms. I was in football environments. I was watching my dad. I was proud of my dad. I used to go into school and the older kids would be like, "Oh, that's Freddie Woodman. His dad's a footballer." No one else's dad was a footballer at the school. So it was wicked. It was so good. So yeah, from such a young environment, I remember going to my dad was at Brentford. I was meant to go nursery, and I'd go sit in a kit room with a kit man at Brentford whilst my dad was out training. And I feel like just from a young age, not knowing too much about it, but just being around that environment, it must have had an impact on me becoming a footballer. I can't see how it wouldn't. I used to go to watch my dad every Saturday. I used to go watch him at Oxford every Saturday without a doubt. Even when he went to Rushden and Diamonds, I went and watched him. He played at Thurrock for a little bit. I went and watched him. So yeah, I feel like it must have been huge for me. Not being aware of it, because obviously I was so young, I can't really remember too much. But just being around that environment, it must have impacted me to go on to play football. I feel like after the books I've been reading and stuff, people say I hear about tennis players. Serena Williams is from a young age just hitting tennis balls. Andre Agassi, I read his book, just hitting tennis balls from such a young age. And I think to myself, being around that football environment, did that impact me? And I feel like it must have.
People do say, obviously, you become a product of your environment, don't you? And what you surround yourself with. And not a lot of people, I think, obviously, a very low percentage of guys will probably experience growing up with a father who plays in professional football. But looking back, obviously, on your upbringing as you can now, what do you think the benefits obviously were for you about being involved in that environment and having obviously a father involved in football?
Yeah, I think obviously I can only speak from when I signed for Palace, because that's when I started being a goalkeeper. Before that, I dreamt of being a footballer, but I never thought it would happen. I was at school, I was messing about. I never thought I'd be a footballer. And then I remember I had a trial at Palace, and my dad was like, he said to me, are you going to do this? If you're going to do it, you're going to do it properly. And I remember thinking, it's my first trial, do you know what I mean? He's like, what do you want to achieve? I said, well, I want to get a contract at Palace. I want to become a schoolboy at Palace. He's like, right, let's do it then. So then, I worked, I went and tried on a 6-week trial, got the first contract. Dad was like, remember we set that goal 6 weeks ago? Buzzing, get in. And then he's instantly, what's next? I wanted a scholarship. I want to get a scholarship. Okay, right, work hard. And then Palace offered me a scholarship. So I think my dad implemented this goal setting thing from a very young age. And I used to bounce off everything off him. Everything. My dad would ring me up at 3:00 every day. I was training. What'd you do? This, that, ever. Well, it's changed now a little bit. Now he's a manager. He starts talking to me about formations and everything like that. But he's been massive. And some of the chats we have have been so important for me, and I feel like I've learnt so much off him. And it's so nice to have that he's a dad in one breath, but he's a coach. He understands what I'm going through. He's just been brilliant for me.
Are there any negatives?
Oh, there's loads of negatives. Obviously I signed for Newcastle when he was the goalkeeping coach, so obviously that doesn't help too much. I remember going into Newcastle and people saying, "Oh, here he is, he's here because of his dad." So that was a negative that used to really bug me.
What's that like to try and deal with that perception that this guy's only here because of his dad, even though obviously you're an incredibly talented goalkeeper?
At first, I used to be like, I don't know if I'm happy with this. I remember saying to my dad, "Can't I just play for Sunderland? They're only down the road. I don't want to tread on your toes." And then we spoke about it, and then it was all. And then I remember remember him saying to me, it's a 9 to 5 job. You got to work extremely hard. And I sort of turned it on its head and thought, do you know what? I'm going to prove every single person that said that I'm going to work harder than you. I'm going to do more than you. I'm going to be in this training ground longer than you. And I'm going to prove that I'm Freddie Woodman and I'm not Andy Woodman's son. I'm not Woody's son. That used to be the thing. So yeah, I used to, from when I was 14, when I signed for Newcastle, I was just full on. I'd be in the training ground just doing everything I possibly can. I'd wait around till that person left, because then I know I'm the last person at the training ground. Like, my mind was just on another level. So yeah, that, there is so many. That is a negative about it. Is people will say, oh yeah, he's here because of his dad. And another negative is like, people now, or people say to me now, you're not like your dad. I assumed you'd be like your dad. And I'm like, what do you mean? And obviously my dad's a character, this, that, and the other. I'm like maybe the polar opposite. So I feel like I can get compared to him in a way, but I still just want to be my own person. So yeah, I had to work extremely hard to sort of get rid of that.
That's, talking to one of your teammates quite recently, Andre Ayew, he said his whole mindset when he was obviously growing up to become a professional footballer was for people to know his name instead of his dad's, because obviously, his father was 3-time African World Player of the Year. So that goal of becoming his own player, and people obviously acknowledge him for who he is instead of his dad. Is that something obviously that you went through, and did you find that difficult, or did you embrace that?
When I first signed for Newcastle, I found it difficult. It used to bug me a little bit, and then I just had that moment. You know yourself, is you have moments where something just changes, and it used to drive me. It used to drive me. I used to think, you know what, I ain't gonna be Woody's son. I'm gonna be Freddie Woodman. I'm with Freddie Woodman, and yeah, it drove me, and sometimes it probably drove me mad, because I'd be at the training ground till the last person left. I'd be at the training ground, in the gym. I'd be the last one to leave the gym. If the coach wanted like 11 reps, I'm doing 13 reps. It was getting out of hand. And yeah, looking back now, I think it's probably healthy, because as a young lad, you've just got to work extremely hard, and you just got to be more dedicated than anyone else in the room. And yeah, happily, people now refer to me as Freddie Woodman. But even when I go on Sky now, which me and my dad laugh about, is they'll be like, oh, Freddie Woodman, his dad is Andy Woodman. So now it's like flipped the other way, which is quite funny.
Your dad's probably scrambling now to be like, oh, that's my son, that's my son.
Yeah, maybe. But he's still, we chat, like I said, we chat every day, and he still just, he grills me. He's like, you haven't got 500 league games. So like, we have this like in-house competition now about, it's called Chasing 500. So I have to get to like 500 league games, and I can start like bantering him, which will be quite funny. But no, he's brilliant. And like I said, he's so good just to bounce off, and just learn so much off him.
The perception of, I'm interested to get to know a little bit, because you've got a similar mindset to quite a few of the guys that I've spoken to, and one of the guys that we had a chat about before, one of your current teammates, Matt Ritchie, is really, your mindset is really similar to Matty's in a way that he just saw, wasn't interested in what anybody else was doing, and just saw his own path and stuck to it. In football, as you know, a changing room can be a pretty difficult place, and if you're the guy who's staying last or coming in first, the perception is sometimes that your teammates might think, like he's been a bit busy, or he's doing it like this for show or that for show. Did you ever have that feeling that people were perceiving you in that way, and what did you do to deal with that? You just carry on what you were doing?
Yeah, I think you're totally right. Is like the common thing at the minute in football is like, you're busy. Like, I used to say, I'm not being busy. I just want to be the best. I just want to try and be the best. I might not get to the best, but if I can get close to it, then that's good enough. And yeah, I was obsessed with it. Like, I never used to touch a drink. I never went out. I was just dedicated. My whole, them years of being in like the youth team and the 23s, I just dedicated everything to just trying to be the best. And I'm still like it now. Obviously I had to chill out a little bit, because football can get on top of you and be overwhelming and everything. But yeah, that seems to be the common thing in football. You're busy, and I say to the young lads now, be busy. Because when you get to play in first team, this, that, and the other, the people that are calling you busy, they're working down a factory. They're working down Greg's or something. And I know it sounds bad, but they didn't put in the yards, the effort, the more reps. They didn't put that in. And it's funny, because them people will be looking at you now and be thinking, I wish I would have done that. I wish I would have just done what I was, done extra. I just wish I would have done that, because as a footballer, you do live, you live a decent life, and that is what them people wish they would have done. The people in the youth teams and that are calling you busy.